All right.
We're going to do Being John Malkovich right now?
Yes.
Okay.
You burp directly into the microphone.
Yeah, podcast can't start unless I burp into it.
Let's party like it's the greatest year in film.
All right.
Hell yeah.
I'm Kristin, and with me today is Amber.
Hello.
And Brandon.
Hi.
And Gary.
Hello.
Now, listeners are going to know the first two, but Gary's a special guest because he actually knows things about movies.
Oh, I know a little bit. A little bit about a little bit.
It's cheating. As normally our rule is our opinions can be as unpopular and unsourced as we like. Mm-hmm. But I'm holding you to a higher standard.
Oh, no.
Oh, man.
That's not going to work well.
Because you do a lot of work with indie film buffs group.
Yeah,
so,
I'm one of the two organizers.
So I am super glad that you can make it down here because you seem to always have something scheduled.
Oh, well, it's a pleasure to be here. Yeah.
So for today, we watched Being John Malkovich.
Yes.
We are all...
And I watched it a few years ago, so I think my
Okay.
memory's still good enough
All right,
to
great.
kind of contribute.
I watched it the other day, but I'm trying to remember if that was a dream or
Yeah, it seems like it would be hard to tell.
yeah.
Yeah, I've watched this movie. I want to say the first time I saw it was probably about 7 years ago.
Okay.
And then I watched it recently too with Brandon. So
And this is my first time watching it. I've heard good things about it for years and years, but I finally got a good excuse to see it now.
All right. And when was the first time you saw it?
From 1999, when
Great.
it came out in the theaters.
What did you think about it at the time?
I saw it, I'm one to kind of seek out weird stuff.
Okay.
And all of the pre-publicity was saying, hey, this looks pretty weird. And the fact that it's Being John Malkovich, I knew a little bit about the whole concept of John Cusack going into the door and then into John Malkovich's brain and then then being dumped outside the Jersey Turnpike. So I thought, that's just right up my alley. So
Great.
Yeah.
I feel like I had seen it, but I did not remember a thing about it.
mm-hmm.
And I think what you just described is basically what I knew about it, was a tunnel going into a head somehow.
yeah.
I think that's pretty much it. So the summary, real quick, a puppeteer discovers a portal that leads literally into the head of movie star John Malkovich. You are laughing.
Because it's just I forgot that he was a puppeteer already.
Yeah.
I just watched this movie 3 days ago.
The film opens with an interpretive dance by a puppet.
My second favorite puppet opening to a movie.
Okay, I have to know the first now.
Team America.
Yeah,
Okay,
of course.
The puppet in Puppet Show.
I'm sure I didn't know that. I don't think I've seen that for years and years either.
There's a good rumored story behind it. The investors of the movie, because they had to be persuaded to make a puppet movie by Matt Stone and Trey Parker, and they see the opening of the really crude puppets, and they go, they fucked us.
Actually,
Pretty good.
that answers my questions about as far as language is concerned. Okay.
Yeah.
We can definitely swear.
Yeah, okay, awesome. All right.
And that was before they zoomed out to like the actual well-produced puppet show. So like when I saw the opening to John
That's
Malkovich, that's what I thought of. And whoever was puppeteering that puppet.
Yeah, I have.
Wow.
There was a lot of really cool. There's one point, I think, toward the end of the film where it's obvious it's a dude. Like,
In the suit, yeah.
Yeah.
Because the way the foot bends, yeah.
yeah, the weight is a little too heavy too. But
definitely in the opening montage, that's
yeah,
100%
a lot of it.
puppetry.
Yeah, there was some real artistry in there.
Sorry, I didn't mean to derail your summary.
No, that's fine.
That's okay.
I
We're
mean,
talking about puppets in general.
This summary is basically the whole episode. So, like,
Yeah.
cut in whenever you need to.
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I like this world where like puppetry was a big deal.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, Charlie Kaufman's alternate universe where that's a thing. No,
Like, who was the other puppeteer that he was all pissed off about?
Right, the successful one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was doing like
some giant puppet.
had a giant puppet in France or something that he was doing something.
Like, fucking hack.
Yeah. That's not real art.
That's right.
Well, I saw it just 3 days ago and I can't. But then again, I don't know actors' names very well because again, I know who John Cusack is, but for whatever reason,
Celine Dion.
Then I thought that was Edward Norton for a little bit. I thought John Cusack was Edward Norton for a minute. I was like, is that Edward Norton?
For the briefest of seconds on when he was on the couch, he kind of looked like Edward Norton.
I'll allow it because of stubble, but
and the hair and just in general.
Sure.
But once he turned his face, it was like, no, you can't make that mistake.
I'm bad about remembering people's faces and names.
The interesting thing I remember about being John Malkovich is they had no second plan. If John Malkovich said no, it's like, no, we're not going to, being Christopher Walken or...
That's the thing. Like, he had written it specifically for him, and I think John Malkovich's original gut reaction was, no, I'm good.
Really?
I think so. Like, I don't know if it was him or the agent or something was like, I don't know if any of us knows this, but like, why specifically John Malkovich? Like,
because Charlie Kaufman.
I think that's pretty much it.
Is it okay?
Yeah,
it's just interesting because it's like, even I'm trying to like think of things like what John Malkovich has been in, and it's like I think there's so little that I've seen of him.
He was that jewel thief.
He was in Con Air.
Heist movie.
Con Air, right?
He was in Con Air,
okay.
Along with John Cusack and.
I basically just know him as John Malkovich
for being John Malkovich.
Yeah. No, not even for this movie.
Oh,
just
really?
In the world.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's been in one of the Dangerous Liaison movies. He was also excellent in The Line of Fire. He played a pretty awesome bad guy.
Yeah, he seems to play good bad guys.
Yes, he has that face where it's like, oh man, you're up to something sinister. Yeah.
Weird, like too dark eyes, and I think somebody at one point, even in this movie, says too heavy brow or something. Like,
like the prominent, prominent forehead. I remember the first time I saw it was my friends were like, "You have to watch this movie." And they're like, "There's an
how old?"
I want to say I didn't see this until I was in college, so I was probably 23, 22 or 23.
So we're pretentious kids.
Yes, and they're like a lot had same with like other people were like, "Oh, you need to see Fight Club," and "Oh, you need to see." Donnie Darko was another one that everybody was like, "You have to see this, you have to see this, you have to see this."
Yeah.
And so being John Malkovich was one of those, and they were like, "There's going to be an actress who comes on that you know." But I want to see if you can guess who it is.
Right.
And so they have the whole first scene with, John Cusack's character. His name is Craig, right? Craig.
Craigie.
Craigie. Ugh. We'll get to her character in a minute. But, and then you see the veterinarian, his wife, and she's this frizzed out hair, giant sweaters. Right. And
she looks like Gina Davis in Beetlejuice.
Yeah. And I was like, the whole scene passed by and they're like, did you see who that was? And I was like,
I didn't catch it at first either.
Yeah. And then they're like, oh, it's Cameron Diaz. And I was like, what? Because I'm so used to seeing her cast as like some sexy object, male gaze, desirable character. And then to see her in this role was really interesting to see that kind of like.
She looked like they did more skincare routine than makeup. Like she did not have.
No, she looked like she was chapped face. Yeah.
How long after The Mask was this movie? Because that was
5 years.
Okay.
I think Mask was 94.
Because that was the Cameron Diaz that I saw that I knew. So like it was interesting to see this other presentation.
This was the cutest I have ever seen her. Honestly.
Yeah.
Because she was realistic looking.
Yeah,
right.
Totally.
But it's just so funny to see a puppeteer and like this veterinarian lifestyle
their
with like
home life is just chaos. Like they live with a chimp for some reason.
Yeah, Eli is a chimp. Elijah, I don't know, whatever.
It's a chimp.
Any number of animals.
Craig doesn't know their names.
Yeah. And just like one of the things that really stuck out to me about this movie was one, how washed out it felt, like just color wise. It was very drab. Very drab and very gray, which sets the mood for, how Craig is anyway.
Yeah.
But then also I loved it with the juxtaposition of like this building scale, like surreal stuff that's happening. Mm-hmm. And so, he can't get work as a puppeteer, so he ends up looking for jobs, and he sees one that's like very specific, like looking for somebody with fast, nimble fingers.
Yep.
And so it's a filing place, and he gets there, and it's on the 7th and a half floor.
Yep.
Right.
The woman in the elevator sees him looking confused and is like 7.5, right? Says, yeah. So she grabs this crowbar that's in the elevator.
Yeah.
And like props it open and stops the elevator right between 7 and 8.
The alarm goes off.
Yes. It gets out and then it's like this like very low ceiling you have to hunch over. Mm-hmm. And over time I was like, I don't know about you, but I felt claustrophobic. Like it was just like this weird.
A little bit.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, the cinematography and the way it's framed. Yeah. I mean,
it's
totally.
I'm like, suffocating in this place. Mm-hmm. it's like then you start to feel the surrealism start to build. Because at first it feels like it's just going to be like a normal.
Okay, first it's crazy because there's this woman sitting outside of the boss's office who she can't hear anything right.
Yes. And she blames
she
other
thinks
people.
you're the problem.
Yeah.
And she sounds so convincing that everybody thinks they're the problem.
That's the thing. Like, the boss is then obviously gaslit into thinking he has some kind of speech impediment where he is unintelligible.
And so then you're starting to realize, okay, so weird floor, then you have this weird lady who obviously has a problem, and then this boss who's buying into her weirdness. And then they go watch the training video.
Yep.
You get the sense that Charlie Kaufman probably worked like a year or two in an insurance company, and that's the way he, kind of processed what's going on. It's like, oh, it's so cramped and suffocating, and nobody understands, and we're not communicating, and people think I'm the problem, and I'm not. So, no, I think that's probably some real life.
There's definitely a lot of that in real life of, I am not the problem.
And then it was like, what was that training video where it was like, why is the 7.5 floor exist? And it was some weird play.
With the little person. That,
who he proposes to on the spot and then insults her immediately after.
Yes. There's something about
your accursed kind.
I'll marry you and give you this thing because your cursed kind have suffered long enough or whatever. It's
like I can't decide if is it 100% they know it's a joke, or is it a little bit of this is actually offensive and we can't do this anymore?
I don't know. We were wondering about that too in other movies we were watching, and like we talked about Team America a little bit, where it's like, can you even make a movie like Team America anymore?
I doubt it.
Don't think you could.
We on Drop Dead Gorgeous, we landed on the side of you probably couldn't do this.
Well, because there was another movie that recently or was trying to come out where it was about North Korea.
The interview?
Yeah. Yes, the interview, thank you. And then that didn't go forward, right?
What had happened is that the North Koreans basically hacked into Sony. That's the whole reason why the whole Sony was hacked into, and the nude photos of, the actors and actresses were leaked. They did that in response to The Interpreter being released, because the whole plot line was Seth Rogen and James Franco were going to be quote unquote interview Kim Jong-un, and then they were actually going to kill him, which offended the North Koreans. They retaliated that way. So
they have a message to control.
Yeah, exactly.
But it did eventually come out, right? Like on streaming?
DVD and streaming, yeah.
Okay.
Because I remember at a certain point they had leaked the movie, I think in response to some of this, of just like, well, we're just going to release it anyway.
Oh, that's right. I think they did about the same time they hacked Sony's mainframe.
It's like, if we can't release it, well, we're going to release it in other ways.
Right.
So the 7.5 floor.
Sounds legit.
Okay, great. Is for businesses who have been forced to cut corners.
Yes.
So hence this filing thing and these just weirdos.
Yeah. And then he meets
the worst character in the world.
Oh, yeah,
I love her.
I hate her so much.
So pretty. So he meets this woman who's in the training thing, and he's immediately drawn to her for some reason. And it's like, did he have the puppet of her first and then
I think he
probably modified one he had.
Okay. Because I was like, maybe that's why he was drawn to her, because he had a puppet in his, like...
Because I think originally his puppet looked like his wife.
He's got one of his wife.
And then...
I think they're separate ones, though.
Yeah, okay. So anyway, he meets this girl who's, like, somehow has something about her that's whatever.
Yeah.
And he immediately falls, like, he's starting to fall in love with her, but she is... I think Brandon and I both were like, she is chaotic evil. Like, she really is. She's self-serving and
there's nothing she's done in that movie that is for anyone other than herself.
So how does he end up finding the tunnel?
A file fell behind a cabinet.
Okay.
So he moved the cabinet.
Right.
And there's a panel on the wall that he pulled off, and then there's a door.
And then he opened it, and... Because that's what I do when I
find He did get to retrieve the file.
Oh, yeah, he got the file.
Yes.
But if I ever find a little tiny door, I'm going in. I'm going to go in it.
Yeah,
I'm probably going to bring a flashlight. But
did he bring a plank of wood with him?
He brought the plank of wood.
He brought the plank of wood with him. And then he was spit out on the New Jersey Turnpike. He didn't have the plank of wood
anymore. Where is it? Is it in his head?
So yeah, he ends up being in John Malkovich's, like, it's such a weird too, because the way that they use the perspective, it's like, it's very heavily vignetted, and it's like the shape of an eyeball, like their eyelids.
It's very awkward. It's not like, it's definitely like your neck is locked. So
yeah, so you can't really do anything. And so he's looking, and I can't remember what it was. Was he
he's
spreading?
reading a newspaper, eating toast.
Puts the cup in the sink.
Yep.
And I liked how they did the sound in that because it did sound like you were actually inside, like
The toast crunching was so loud.
yes, exactly. Like you'd be inside your own head. So it was really
The
cool.
slurping was so loud.
And like how the teacup hit the the water coming on. It was very good sound design. And then what happened? Then he gets spit out on the side of a road, and then it just starts. It's like the same kind of thing like the Wes Anderson film, and it kind of reminded me of that too, where it's like a lot of things that Wes like there's these really crazy situations are happening around people, and they just accept it.
Right.
So he goes and tells this girl,
Yeah.
Maxine, the chaotic evil woman, about it, and she's just like brushes it off and like whatever.
I think she thinks he's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so just kind of like plays along like, all right, whatever. Like I have to be with you on the same floor every day. So
right. And then he ends up taking his wife.
Yeah, who immediately buys it.
that's
It's
the
like,
thing. Okay. So he's been hitting on this woman like crazy and has this thing where like, okay, if I can guess your name in 3 tries,
Yeah.
then I can
Which
take
was
you
a
out
good-
to...
Yeah.
He just makes noises until she reacts to one. Got it. It's Maxine.
Yeah.
So
But he tells his wife too. He tells Cameron Diaz's character.
he lies about where he is with the woman, but he tells the truth about this crazy ass thing happening with a portal into another man's head.
Right.
I thought that was an interesting juxtaposition.
Yeah. But she believes him and goes
wants to go
along
do it.
and she tries it. And I thought this was really interesting concept where she goes in, she experiences being in John Malkovich, and then she immediately has a crisis of identity.
Yes, she comes out and is like, I think I'm transsexual.
Right. Which is like, I was like, at first it's like, because you don't really know anything about this character before this experience.
We know that she wants a baby.
Yes.
And
She's a vet and she cares about animals.
yes. Yep.
And that's pretty much it. So
She doesn't have conditioner.
yeah, her hair's always frizzy. But it was really interesting to see this character start to unravel, like just from that experience. Whereas, like, John Cusack's character went through and was like, oh, that was a thing. And she's like, I finally felt like I know
I'm who I am.
I know who I'm supposed to be. I know what this is supposed to be.
Everything made sense.
Which is like, so maybe she is, maybe she's not. I don't know. But I liked that they explored that in this movie, like what it would be.
In a way that wasn't insulting at all.
Yeah, it wasn't insulting. It was,
just like she saw this perspective that she didn't know that
and feelings,
she needed.
Yeah. But yeah, so I thought that was interesting. And then she becomes basically addicted to going back into it.
I think she likes the feeling of being a man.
Yeah.
Well, who doesn't? It comes down to that.
I mean, I would crawl into a hole and try the experience of being a man
totally.
at least once.
We're not all crawled into someone's hole, each of us now, in all of these different bodies. We're all in some portal.
All of us.
All of us right now. There's someone inside of you that I'm speaking to right now.
Oh, somebody else kind of along for the ride? Well,
Yeah.
That's kind of a scary thought.
Well, I hope they're having a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, that reminds me of a deep thought by Jack Handy. It's, if the Holy Spirit's in every one of us, I hope he likes chimichangas because that's what he's getting.
Right, exactly.
The Holy Spirit is Deadpool.
And it's interesting that the Cameron Diaz character, she enjoys this feeling of being a man, but then she compares the situation to this is John Malkovich's feminine side because it's a tunnel
Uh-huh. Oh,
that
yeah.
other people go
sure.
into.
I see.
She's like a vagina. She actually says this word like, all right, so you're the feminine side of this man that you are now? Okay,
yeah.
cool. Great.
Right. So after that experience, I think what happens next is Maxine finally says, she calls Craig and is basically like, let's turn this into an opportunity.
Yes.
Let's turn this into a business, essentially. And so let's give people the experience of being John Malkovich.
Does she believe him at this point, or is she trying to fuck with him?
I don't know.
Yeah, is there ever a point in the movie where she herself goes into John Malkovich?
No.
I don't think so.
No.
Yeah. I kind of get the sense that in this Charlie Kaufman alternate universe that this occasionally happens. It's like there's portals all over
Right.
the place. Where,
Right.
Yeah,
Totally.
exactly. So, where people kind of believe it, it's like, yeah.
All right. Let's put a thing out and start like basically a theme park ride, essentially, of being John Malkovich.
JMCO?
JM
Yeah, something like
JM Inc. or something like that. And they start having people, I think it was like 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. You could go for $200 a head.
You get
Be
your
John
15
Malkovich.
minutes.
50 minutes of being John Malkovich.
And then you get spit out on the Jersey Turnpike.
Yep, and they have like a whole thing that's doing that, where they've got a van and everything ready to pick up people and take them back. And I think at this point in time, I can't remember exactly, but I know that Cameron Diaz's character gets to experience being John Malkovich while he's on some sort of date with Maxine.
Yes.
And then she becomes attracted to Maxine. It's real weird. It starts to get really, really yucky, is what I said.
Okay, yes. So at this point, Cameron Diaz goes to her husband and is like, we should have Maxine over.
Yeah.
He's been worried about there's going to be some jealousy. I mean, because he does have something to hide, so there's that. But she's like, we should have her over. We should have her over for dinner.
Yeah, she's your business partner.
Yeah, we should get to know her. And so Maxine comes over. They both are hitting on her.
God, I was like watching two sharks circle.
I know.
Support.
They're smoking weed.
Yeah.
So that's probably helping.
Yeah.
And they both attack her at the same time.
Yeah, I know. The jumper.
Maxine slaps John Cusack.
Rejects.
Yes.
No. To John Cusack.
No. And then looks at the wife and is like, I am smitten with you while you are John Malkovich.
Oh my God.
Only as John, sweetie. I'm sorry.
And this is when it starts to get real weird. Real quick.
Where it starts. Yeah,
I mean, well,
That's exactly this is what the movie is actually about. Is about these women. Like, fuck John Cusack, fuck the men.
Right.
Like, this movie is about queer women.
apparently, yeah.
That's how it ends. Like, John Cusack's consciousness ends up somewhere. Like,
Yeah.
we have to tie that up, but it's about these women.
Right. Slowly. And I have issues with ending and redemption arc stuff that we can get to later, but I mean, I could buy into the surrealness. That's fine. But then when stuff starts to get really yucky, where like you're using a person to like your means. And so when John Cusack character finds out about this, like, you know, his wife and Maxine
Have been making dates
and like basically having sex with each other through this, which I have a huge problem with, through John Malkovich and manipulating.
Well,
and
I'm sure
him.
John Malkovich doesn't mind.
Yeah, maybe.
Well,
Not
not at first.
He's freaked out enough to call Charlie Sheen.
Oh, that's
Right.
true.
Oh, yeah, he is. It's like
He
some
did
witch.
That's right.
I forgot
witches.
about Charlie Sheen. I was like, what is Charlie Sheen doing here?
He's
That's
the
your
buddy.
friend? He's like, wow, she's calling you Lottie. That's her game. If he's you should keep a woman who calls you Lottie.
Yeah, totally. You're nuts to let go of a girl who calls you Lottie. I can tell you that much as a friend.
I just don't picture Charlie Sheen and John Malkovich being friends. I don't.
I think he was just on the set trying to solve this Rubik's Cube, and he didn't want to leave. It's like, I guess you're part of my movie now.
I watched a little interview that was from the library, got the Criterion version, and there was an interview with John Hodgman that John Malkovich did. Saying that, like, I didn't even know Charlie Sheen. It just seemed like he would be a good friend character for this situation specifically, because he would be nonsense. Like, he would not be supportive at all.
Exactly. He'd be probably pushing you into the wrong path. Yeah. But then once Craig finds out about this, things go a little bit crazy. Like, till he ends up throwing his wife into the monkey's cage.
So at gunpoint.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about the gun.
He has the wife make a date with Maxine, then locks her in the chimp cage.
Yeah.
So there's like
so many levels of deceit that are happening.
Non-consent.
Non-consent. Because then he goes...
Pseudo-non-consent, because it's still the same John Malkovich. It's just a different aspect in his mind.
I guess.
So it's like this weird...
At this point, but this is where Craig starts to be able to control John Malkovich.
Because he's a puppeteer, and so...
And
that's right.
He knows how to put on another skin.
Yes, that was the whole thing. Being another person's skin was a huge... Don't you want to know what it's like to be in somebody else's skin? Anyway, so yeah, he starts to do this whole thing with Maxine, and a couple times it happens where he makes his wife call and then do that, and then I guess she ends up getting escaped, because then we go into the chimp's mind.
Yes.
And go to
They
go to the flashback of his family being captured.
She's been talking about this chimp going to a shrink and having a childhood trauma, and you're just like, whatever, this is some crazy woman. The chimp has flashbacks.
Yeah. And he learns to untie the ropes from his family. And then so he sees the ropes and he unties Lottie and frees her. And she calls Maxine to tell her, hey, the last couple times it's been my husband. He's had me tied up. And this is where I'm like,
she runs with it.
yeah, Maxine's just like, yeah, okay.
She does not cancel the date. Nope. She's like, I guess I'm doing this.
Yep. It's another reason why I hate her character so much.
Because it's like, oh, she's like, I thought you loved me. She's like, I do, sweetie pie, or whatever she says.
Yeah, she's the fucking Sawyer of this movie. Like, just everybody's got a nickname.
Yeah. Yeah, she does. Honey, sweetie
Sugar
pie,
plum.
Sugar plum, yeah.
Cowboy.
Oh, God, this movie was...
It's wild. It is wild.
Yeah. And so, like, she goes along with it, and then, you know, she realizes it's Craigie in there. And now she's got this plot where it's like, oh, we can... If you can control John Malkovich, you know, if you control him, and it's lasting longer than 15 minutes, we can basically take over his life.
Yeah. And we can use his notoriety, his money, to get you that puppeteering career that you've been after. Like, I don't know what her stake is in this other than the money, I guess, but...
I think in money. Also, there's one line she did say where she's like, have you ever felt what it's like to have two consciousness basically wanting you behind one pair of eyes?
Yeah, she's into that deep, what's the word
I
I'm
don't know
looking
if she's
for?
like in another life in the non-Kaufman universe. Would she be polyamorous or something? I don't know.
Ugh. Yeah. So they take over John Malkovich's life.
So there's another part that we have not been talking about that is Lester. That is the boss.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we initially know him as just some
creepy
lech.
Yeah.
Yep. Your standard office lech.
Yep.
I want to have sex with the secretary.
Maybe 80 years ago it would have been possible for me. And Craig is like, how old are you? 105. He doesn't look a day over 70.
No.
You're like, okay, is this movie age where things don't quite look like what they say? But no.
Right, like, is he just fucking with you or
what?
what?
Because like one time Craig and him met at the juice bar. And then they went had dinner at his house, and he had juice also. I
didn't notice that.
Yeah, I caught that. I was like, man, he must really love juice.
Multiple kinds of juice, because there was a green cup, and then there was an orange cup.
Oh, he did say the secret to his old age was carrot juice.
Yeah. Oh, great. There it is. But it's not really.
Not really.
Because...
So, at one point, Craig and his wife go over to Lester's house for dinner. She asks for the restroom. And finds this room that just has Malkovich all over the walls.
Like the timeline of like from his birth to like pivotal moments of his
diplomas
childhood.
on the wall.
Yeah. Specifically like what his body looks like in certain times, like his physical development.
And you're like, what the heck?
Yeah.
Why?
So when the wife character gets distraught that Maxine is now knowingly spending time with Craig.
Craigovich. That's how I'm going to refer to him now.
She then goes to Lester because she assumes he's going to know something. He knows something is up.
Right.
Like, I don't know why, but toward the beginning of the movie, Craig assumes that the boss knows nothing about this tunnel.
Right.
He's like, whatever. He doesn't know anything. Don't worry about it. He's got a room.
I know. Whatever.
He's got an evidence dungeon attic.
Didn't Lottie even mention that to
Yeah, she
Craig?
did.
Yeah.
And he was like, he doesn't know anything about the tunnel. Don't worry.
It's his office.
Yeah. So then here's where the details get kind of murky for me.
Right.
Of like how this transference happens and who all is involved and how many people and...
Well, just like you said, what was it? It's just like you just buy into it, right? This is the universe where stuff happens. He just pulls out a book that just happens to have like the whole explanation of these tunnel things.
Fully illustrated.
He's like, remember that training... Well, he doesn't say to her, but he says the name of the guy who founded the 7.5 floor. I'm that captain.
Martin.
And, something like that. And he's like, and found this tunnel one day, and I've found a way to transfer my consciousness into a host body, but it has to be when they're 44 years old.
It has to be before midnight on their 44th birthday.
Right.
Or else you get projected into the next forming infant vessel, and then you're stuck.
Right. So, all right, I'll just buy it.
Yep. Got it. Moving on.
Right. Well, it's one of those things where, to say a movie is dreamlike is a pretty horrible cliche. Not horrible, but in fact, it's overused. But this is truly dreamlike because we've all had dreams where all of a sudden it's like we're flying and it's like, no, this is it. Yeah, that's fine. We're just buying into this. And Kaufman does, with his screenplay, does kind of create this. Now, of course, I'm embarrassed because I didn't have a chance to research before. But I know Kaufman wrote it, of course, but
Jones.
It was Spike Jonze. Okay,
yeah.
All right, cool.
And so
we had that discussion earlier.
Yeah, I was like, oh, that makes sense now to me because Spike Jonze kind of does have that I don't know. Yeah, I don't. The last thing I watched of his was probably Where the Wild Things Are. Is that
that was I don't know.
That was years ago. That was at least 10, I think.
Well, it's not very prolific. It's usually a few years between films for him, but.
So it's very dreamlike.
The wife gets this explanation from Lester, and he's some kind of society.
Yeah. So are they all going to be?
That's my question.
My thing is, are they going to be stuck like he was afraid of being stuck with the babies? Because he's the one who's going to control.
Okay. So the thing is, Craig gets so good at controlling John Malkovich that he is never ejected.
Right.
So he's just basically been taking over for 8 months. And the old folks are concerned of okay, so if he doesn't come out of there, if we can't get in there,
right,
then we just get to die of old age.
Right.
Instead of going back into a new vessel.
Right. Because he would be he would suppress them into
the subconscious.
Into the subconscious.
That's the explanation.
Because Lester said something along the lines he was found a way to take multiple people into it, and I'm assuming there would be some sort of rotating.
I was not sure about.
Yeah, same here.
I think there's no explanation for it, but my mind means that they probably just have a rotating. Inside Out, you'd be
I still haven't seen that.
Oh, that's really good. So it's how they just the personifications of emotions. I think there would just be some sort of round table.
Gotcha.
Where they just get to live their consciousness in there and they could rotate in and out.
So basically what the business is doing, but just the society?
Yes.
Taking turns So then what does this have to do with switching vessels and
Or maybe it's some kind of multi-personality thing where they exist as their own consciousness.
Right.
They're becoming a colony.
Rather than being suppressed. It doesn't explain it too well.
They eventually all go into the tunnel at once.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so eventually they invite Lottie with them. Yeah. So whatever, we'll just accept it as it is. It works out great for them. However they figured it out, Yay. Wonderful for them. But they're worried that Craig has such a strong presence in Malkovich's consciousness that
too good at puppeteering.
He's too good at it. He will push them.
Yeah.
So in the 8 months that's happened, though, he's become this world-renowned puppeteer. John Malkovich is the puppeteer when you think about puppeteering and stuff. And at this point, Maxine they're married, and they have, and she's pregnant. Mm-hmm. And I kind of liked how they transitioned to let you know what the 8 months was. Because it was some sort of documentary film of life and times of John Malkovich on I don't know, whatever, VH1
Sean Penn
or something.
Was wanting to quit being an actor to become a puppeteer.
Right. Brad Pitt was in there looking like he was so done. Right.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing was him as Malkovich became a puppeteer, and that's why he became so famous. It's hey, it's John Malkovich turned out to be a puppeteer.
Yeah. He had just gone to his agent and said, "I'm not an actor anymore. I'm a puppeteer."
The agent was like, "All right,
gotcha, wonderful." And so then, because the society's afraid that that's going to happen, he needs to let go of his own accord. Craig needs to eject himself.
They need to convince him to get out.
And so they convince him by stealing Maxine and threatening her life, kidnapping, essentially.
Yes.
Saying, get out or we'll kill Maxine, essentially.
Right. He does not want to do this initially.
No. And he holds on. I can't remember.
What was the thing that took him over the edge for that? I can't remember.
I think he just got drunk at a bar.
Was it the relationship falling apart?
There was a callback here because he's sitting at the bar as John Malkovich, and some guy comes over and is like, "You're John Malkovich, right?" And he's eventually gets so pissed off at this guy that he hits him. He gets hit back. Mm-hmm. So he's got this bloody nose. There was a moment at the beginning of the film where he gets punched in the face for being a puppeteer.
Yes, when he was making the puppets that
they had this
on the street,
a nun and a monk. Doing some
air sex.
Yeah, totally.
Rubbing up against the wall that's between them.
Yep.
And
in front of this little girl.
So that's a really good. I like that callback too. Yeah. What's also funny at the same time is Maxine escapes, goes through the tunnel, but she and Lottie chases after her. But because Craig is so strong, they're pushed into the subconscious. So I really like this whole where they're like tumbling through all of Malkovich's.
So what's happening here is that
life, essentially.
Lottie is still in love with Maxine.
Yes.
We don't know where Maxine is at this point in her head.
Mm-hmm.
Lottie believes that Craig is never coming out of this man. So basically, she's never going to get her chance with Maxine. Right?
Yeah. And so if I can't have you, no one can have you.
Yes.
Trope thing.
So Lottie now has a gun and is chasing Maxine
Through
very pregnant. Yes.
Through Malkovich's
subconscious.
Right. Which was a fun way to do it because it also kind of reminded me of what's the movie with Jim Carrey and the Manic Pixie Dream Girl?
Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. There was a lot of good stuff like that dreamlike quality when you're like having your subconscious memories and you're reliving them, and it's like I was a child and everything seemed huge. I kind of really liked that in this too, where it's like you're going through these memories and you open a door and you're falling down into another memory and coming up something.
I think that was my favorite scene. It was like Psychonauts or any other concept where you're entering someone's mind and you're going through like specifically those memories of like him wetting his pants on the bus.
Yes.
And you're seeing like his childhood traumas.
Johnny Malkopiss or something.
Yeah. Johnny Malkopi.
All the while like there's this gun chase happening.
Yeah. That was really good. That was like the thing that really I liked that about the movie a lot.
Another one was that they were clearly in college, like on this couch, and this woman says, "You're creepy."
Yeah.
And he's just
and then Lottie and
they're running through.
And then of course Lester's like, "No, don't kill her because she's carrying the genes."
The grossest way.
What was it?
They use the word seed.
Oh,
which I hate.
So basically the next tunnel baby, I guess.
Vessel.
Vessel, thank you. Tunnel baby. Whatever.
So there's so much that happened in this movie. Was this before or after John Malkovich went into his own mind? Because he found out about
much after.
Okay.
Yeah. That we skipped over the like the most iconic Malkovich. Because that is kind of creepy. Like, what happens if you would go into your own mind?
So he's starting to get freaked out because he knows that he's being controlled at some point and the Maxine has something to do with it.
Right.
I don't know how he finds JM Inc., but he goes there. It's one of those things I'm just going to accept that he knows to go there.
Right.
And he gets pissed off at them.
Yeah.
And Maxine's just like, all right, just let him go through. Just let him go through.
Yeah.
See what happens.
And I can just see her shitty character of just like, she doesn't care what's going to happen. No. She's just curious to see what actually will happen if he goes through his own
singularity.
head.
Who
like
knows?
She just wants to see and observe and be evil.
Well, like we do, because I mean,
totally.
Yeah.
I mean, she is us.
Especially when there's another person already in there who has like a few minutes left.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
So it's like, all right, how's that going to work? 2 people in there.
Yeah, and that guy seemed to think it was pretty cool.
Yeah. Malkovich. Everything is Malkovich.
So what happens when he's in his own consciousness is everybody in the scene is him.
Yes.
Yep.
And that's the only word that they can speak. It's Malkovich.
He becomes a Pokemon.
And he he even looks at like the menu and then all the words are Malkovich as well. Interesting.
I mean, the song that's in the background, the piano song, is just that. It's a great scene.
So then he and this other guy who's already in there, they get spit out. Craig is waiting for them at the turnpike, and Malkovich just chews him out like, you have to shut this down. This is my head.
Yeah.
So that doesn't happen.
No, that's when he starts to take over.
Yes.
Yeah. And then now we're back to where we're at.
Maxine being pregnant and
So eventually, when he's in the bar fight and he did the bloody nose and stuff, he calls him and says, "Okay, yes, I'll let go." Mm-hmm. And when he lets go, Maxine and Lottie were on the Jersey Turnpike, and there was this whole scene with them before he lets go, where
they basically reconcile.
Yeah, which to me, so this is where I have a problem with Maxine's character arc, where this whole entire time she's been very self-serving, very much like, I'm in it for my own means. I want money, and I'm just going to exploit people. And then she tells Lottie, this baby is yours.
Right.
Because I got pregnant I
kept it because I knew it was
you. Yeah. And then to me, it's like they hug and they make up. And I'm like, why would a baby change? Like, why?
I kind of wondered about that too, of like, was it just a psychological thing?
Because to me, it's just like, having a baby, becoming a mom doesn't equal I'm now a good person. There's lots of bad moms.
Yeah, and that's how they were presenting her. And I didn't think about this until later, but like she said that she knew that it was Lottie's baby, but she still completely dumped Lottie in favor of
Because
Craig
money.
Lynch. Yeah.
Because money.
Even knowing that that was Lottie's baby and that she still loves Lottie apparently, but she was happy to dump her.
Yeah. So they hug, they kiss, they flag a taxi. Craig's out now. He has the plank of wood that he had missed, had been in John's head earlier.
Yeah, he does have the plank again.
And then he's like, "Hey, I did this for you, Maxine. They were going to kill you. I love you. Doesn't this prove?" And they just like,
I'll go back into Malkovich and then you'll love me again. Which is like the exposition.
gross.
Yeah.
This makes me feel sad and bad.
Yeah. It was not great. So then
all of the old people go into Malkovich and flash forward. I can't remember how many years or whatever it was.
some years later,
Quite a few, yeah.
Malkovich calls over Charlie Sheen.
comes over again.
With the terrible, like, bald wig.
Like it's not
That's
there. It's
right.
like been
Oh, I remember
like
that.
10
it's like a
years.
swollen brain.
Yeah, it's been like 10 years or something, and Malkovich is now with the
He's wearing the red sweater, first of all.
and he's also with the
Yeah.
Florence,
secretary,
who looks
That's right.
exactly the same.
the woman who kept telling everybody had speech impediments and stuff. And then he's like, "Hey, I found a way to let us live forever," to Charlie Sheen.
Right.
And he opens a door, and then
Wait. I love
you
this
something?
line. No. Flores, you, me, Gary Sinise, maybe? I don't know why that made me laugh so much.
Maybe.
He's a pretty cool dude.
And so then he opens the door, and there's like, what was her name? Charlotte or
Emily.
And it's the room again, where it's like, here's this time of the new vessel, and then you get to see like this like snapshot or like this scene with the two moms, Lottie and Maxine. They have this daughter, and they're at a pool, and they're having a good time, and it's really cute. Like, it's actually a really cute scene. Again, I'm like, I don't know about you, Maxine.
I'm watching you.
And then what happens? It's like you go inside Emily's brain, and you see the tunnel vision like you've been seeing this whole time, and it's
John
Guess who's
Cusack's
there?
voice.
so nasty.
But
Sitting there watching.
so we can assume that after midnight, he went in through the tunnel again to try to get Maxine back.
Yeah.
But then got stuck because it was after midnight, so he was funneled into the baby instead.
Right.
And at that point, you have no control. You are just stuck forever watching through someone else's eyes, and that's where John Cusack is at the end. Yep.
Hopefully he doesn't learn to control over time that kid. And just
No, I don't think
the
you're
same
supposed
thing.
to be able to.
Yeah,
Well,
that
he's
rule.
He's special.
He is a master puppeteer, so hopefully it doesn't
I mean,
develop
it's been
over
10
time.
years already, man.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Ugh.
He can't even make her look away.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, because he was saying, "Look
That's
away,
right.
look away, look away," and he. Ugh.
Okay, so this movie is apparently gross.
Yeah, I wrote in my notes. I said I give this movie a rating of yuckers. Just in theme. Overall,
Yeah.
I love this movie.
Yeah, no, I was down on some parts of it just because of the character, but yeah, it was really fun to watch. Really cool concept. I like that a lot. Just like everybody just completely bought into it. Sure, yep, we'll make a business out of it.
Honestly, Maxine was my favorite part of this movie. Loved
I just
her.
hate her, like, because she just wants to be loved, but she wants to be loved in such a weird way of
Under
like
her
multiple people through one set of eyes. Like, the fact that she just loves that is.
Got to be on her terms.
Ugh.
Yeah, I always thought that that Kaufman script. I mean, this is the first film based on a Kaufman script, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so.
So, yeah, just the fact it was kind of came out late in the year of 1999, and I thought it was kind of interesting that this is yet another kind of an alternate universe film like Donnie Darko was and like The Matrix. And so it's like, I'm thinking, yeah, okay, these movies were all produced in 98, so we're coming up upon the year 2000, and there's a whole bunch of apocalyptic type of literature coming out. So I think, these folks just wanted to kind of create their own cool little universes to kind of contrast against, the cultural apocalypse, which, people were paying attention to. Well,
Y2K.
Yeah, Y2K, yes.
2000, the year of the futures.
But I remember watching it at the time and saying, yeah, Charlie Kaufman, he's somebody to watch.
Going somewhere.
He's going somewhere, yeah.
I feel like 1999 is becoming a very queer year because we have this movie, which at its core is like, that's what it is. It's about these two women.
Mm-hmm.
We're about to talk about American Beauty,
Mm-hmm.
which at its heart, that's what it
Yes.
is about.
Right,
the
right.
whole thing hinges on it.
And honestly, Big Daddy, too,
Yeah,
had stuff
Big
in
Daddy.
it.
I do not remember that because I have not seen it again
Well,
yet.
we will talk about that.
We'll another time. Fight Club, written by a gay man. I don't think he was out yet, and it's very
No, he wasn't.
homoerotic.
Mm.
And The Matrix is just one big coming out film for transgender folks.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
so 99 had it going on.
Yeah, I never even saw it through that lens. I mean, but now, of course, when we were talking our
Right.
first episode, like for us, 1999, I was 12. So
I was older.
we have a lot of things that are going to be like that. But we were talking about specifically like, so I wouldn't have picked up on that stuff when I was, and a lot of these movies I wouldn't have been able to, would have been allowed to have seen back then.
Right.
Right.
So, yeah. Now watching it now from a different viewpoint
Yeah.
in my life,
Mhm.
it's interesting to see that kind of stuff. I started to pick up on that too, like this movie with the transsexual, the lesbian
Yep.
lesbians, and then American Beauty too, which
Yeah.
we'll talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I have thoughts about that movie.
Yeah,
Man.
because you can tell, like, well, the way these are presented, when they show, like, LGBT characters, it's like, you can tell it's a new concept because the way they present them is very surprising.
It's
like,
edgy.
Right.
yeah, it's like, usually there's some event that happens, or, like, it's very in-your-face moment of, like, oh, okay, that's how these
The
characters
plot
are.
hinges on it somehow.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and so like for instance, when Lottie said I'm transsexual,
Mm-hmm.
it's just the high of the experience. You're not really. You can't just go changing your mind. Lottie, you know how
Yeah,
you
she
are.
like wants to go talk to her allergist about it.
yes, and dismissing her experience. That character,
Right. So like, yeah, exactly. Like regardless of whether or not she actually is, like to completely discount that immediately is like not something that we can do.
I want to talk more about that, but it opens up other movies, and I don't
Yeah.
want to get into that right yet.
Yeah, there's some stuff I'll say for Big Daddy and American Beauty for
Okay.
sure, because there's similar moments, but are more like impactful of just like,
Yes.
let me put this very new concept in your lap like a time bomb, and
Yes.
I'll run away. Like it's you can tell that movies haven't really gotten to a point of being comfortable to show that yet, but
Right.
comfortable enough to talk about it and to mention it and bring it up and have you think about these things.
It's not so much like it's a new concept. It's more like we're now putting it more in these big box films, exposing you more to
Yeah.
this thing
Right.
that's existed for a while, but nobody's really talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting to see because, like, not going too much into other movies, but the way that they played it into Big Daddy was interesting for me because it was very much in your face, but also like, why do you care?
That was a really big moment for like around my age group because we were just like teenagers. So like a lot of me and my friends didn't really know other gay people or talk about it openly. So like this was definitely a moment of just like, oh, this whole other world exists.
Yeah.
And this very popular, widespread movie is talking about it.
Huh.
But I'll go into more when we talk about Big
Cool.
Daddy.
Okay, cool. So what's the thing? The thing is, what is the most emblematic scene? Like, what is the thing that you picture when you hear being John Malkovich?
I would have to go back to the Malkovich. Maybe
Yeah,
okay.
Malkovich.
Yeah.
Yeah, Malkovich. Usually you can make that reference and people will pick up on
Right.
it. Usually. For me personally, I was like when we were talking about the scenes, like for me when I look at movies, I remember the things that stood out to me most and how they handled something. And it was that whole that chase of Lottie and Maxine through his subconscious and how they treated, how do you not necessarily personify, but how do you take a metaphysical concept and try to turn it into something that you can comprehend in a
Tangible.
physical space? Yeah, how do you make it tangible? And that was really cool how they made that tangible.
I think for me, the thing was the entirety of the 7.5 floor of just like,
That was mine too.
yeah, because it's like, it's this surreal place. There are many different types of characters here in this office coming together. You're seeing a little bit of like, it's kind of like a horizontal slice of the whole movie. You've got the weird characters. You got a weird
It's got this weird history.
origin story.
Yeah.
The office is weird. The portal is there. You get to see like how that works and
Emblematic of how suffocating Craig's life is.
causing him to hunch down
Okay.
after
and that was
he got hired.
another thing was, so he has to bend over in this in this weird floor. But then also, like, that's what his job is to hunch over.
Yeah, good, yep.
And he goes home and he's still hunched over because that's his life now.
Yeah. What's the most 90s thing about this movie? You're so ready?
I'm so ready. Because, like, for me, it's one of those things, the first thing I noticed when he went to Maxine's office, she didn't have a computer on her desk. I was like, what? Where's her computer? And then the next thing is, like, they called the newspaper to place an ad.
Yep.
And I'm like...
Classifieds. That was one of mine.
Classifieds, looking for job postings.
There was a mail order catalog that John Malkovich was ordering from.
Yeah.
He was talking on the phone, trying to get his monogrammed towels figured out. Politically incorrect training videos.
Yeah.
Very 90s.
Oh, Twin Towers were there.
Yeah. Yeah, that would probably be my answer to like what's the most 90s? The very explicit shot of the two towers.
So I've been rewatching News Radio too, and that's very prominently featured in the opening.
It's just strange to go back, like TMNT, same thing.
Yeah, John Cusack starring in a movie.
Okay, zing.
Yeah.
Zing. It's true. Another one was Craig called his wife to let her know I'm going to be out, and he said I'll just letting her know. And then he gets home late and she's like, I was really worried where he's like, oh, I should have called you again. And no cell phone. Like I could have just texted, whoever I needed to text, let them know I'm going to be staying, another 2 hours. But he would have had to like leave to go find a phone and whatever.
As far as being John Malkovich, do we have any thoughts on its influence? Like what has this film influenced about narrative or cinema at large or the culture other than Malkovich?
Speaking as someone who's never seen the movie before and I don't know if I've seen any other movies John Malkovich was in. For me, it was entirely just putting the name in my mind of like, I don't know John Malkovich outside of this specific title of this specific movie. As far as influence, that's as far as I can speak.
I feel like I only know him as a character actor, really.
Right, and that's how I knew him before and knew him after. I mean, as far as influence is concerned, Charlie Kaufman's credited a niche for himself,
right?
As being kind of, a benign David Lynch, where his alternate universes aren't nearly as deadly as. They're as icky in some spots, but as far as being sinister, he's a less sinister David Lynch, and so he kind of created that. Space for himself. But as far as, I think other writers are kind of loath to, kind of follow that path because, again...
It is too niche, maybe?
It's a little too niche, and it's not the way that they're taught. It's the screenwriters, Sid Field and all that, there's this 3-act structure, and,
we were just talking about Wes Anderson and how it's formulaic in a way, and...
Well, I mean, for me, it's like
very
when
much
you
like a play.
see a Wes Anderson film, it's a Wes Anderson film.
Right.
Like, it's like, there's no doubt in my mind that was Wes Anderson because of just how he has...
It's all in the framing.
Framing and delivery, and then that whole weird, surreal, absurd situations with these deadpan characters.
Realistic fantasy.
Yeah, realistic fantasy. And so I kind of put that John Malkovich kind of in that same... We talked about Rushmore, and that was really Wes Anderson's first big box.
Was it his first?
No, Bottle Rocket was his first.
Oh, was it?
I never saw that.
Yeah, but this would have been his second film.
Yeah. So I don't know if there were there was an influence there. I mean, I would have no idea.
I mean, they all would have been fairly new folks at all of this. I guess
90. Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe there was some intermixing of this colleague of mine is doing something cool over here.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's interesting though to see it though, because I've never thought about this movie against a Wes Anderson movie. So, but I can kind of see going for the same kind of themes as far as
the modern fantasy.
Yeah, actually.
Set in the real world, yeah.
Which I love.
It's kind of like a fairy tale. At that time, a fairy tale is contemporary. So you have your realistic world and you have your fairy world, and this is kind of that for a modern American.
Right. I kind of get the sense that Kaufman's alternate universe is more personal to him.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
I mean, it's not like, like David Kelly with Donnie Darko or even the Wachowski brothers. I mean, the Wachowski brothers for The Matrix just said, hey, we're going to put everything cool we think is cool in this movie. And, but here, again, it's, he's like, I keep comparing him to Lynch, but I think the fact that these are very surrealistic, but they're very personal to the directors. So, or to the writers in this case.
Is this movie good?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's icky, but it's good.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, things don't have to be
Happy all the time.
non-problematic to be good movies, good narrative. So it pretty much holds up, is what we're saying.
Yeah. I would
agree with that.
Yeah, definitely.
Will it hold up in another 20 years?
I think so. I mean, just because of the fact that it is so personal, that it is its own thing.
It's not really of the culture as much as of this person.
Right. And the fact that, we've even pointed out some of the 90s stuff, but even that's not going to take you out of the movie. It's like, it's...
An absence of something isn't quite as jarring as the presence of something.
Yeah. The Moji movie isn't going to hold up in 40 years.
It doesn't hold up now.
Exactly. It didn't hold up the weekend it came out.
No.
And I think a lot of these emotions in the movie are still going to exist in the future. Like, there's still going to be people with unrequited love.
Sure.
And they're going to have
frustration with where you're at in life.
Chaotic evil.
Issues with identity and stuff like that.
I mean, they'll Google John Malkovich a lot, probably. It's like, it's like, oh, who's this guy? Oh, well, all right.
This very famous actor of the past.
So my last question is, if we remade it now, who would John Malkovich be?
He'd be John Malkovich. I mean, he's still alive.
I mean, who would you build the movie around?
I see what you're saying. Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
Is it still a cis straight white man?
Oh.
Not...
Oh.
Interesting.
Not conventionally attractive.
Wait, no, they've done this movie. It's Jumanji 2.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
When everybody goes and the girl becomes a guy character and the guy becomes a girl character.
Everyone has seen Jumanji 2.
I haven't seen Jumanji 2 myself.
I have not seen Jumanji 2.
I've heard it's surprisingly good, but it's another situation where instead of going into a board game, they go into a video game, and everyone has their standard identities going in, but they all end up playing characters who are atypical for themselves. So there's a lot of like gender swapping. There's some like body physical swapping.
This is just anime, you're saying to me.
I need to see Jumanji 2.
Okay.
But I'm saying Jumanji 2 is a spiritual sequel to being John Malkovich.
Okay. But if we had to pick an actor.
I pick Tessa Thompson. Do you know who that is?
Okay.
So she's kind of she was in Annihilation. She was the biologist with the...
Still haven't seen it anyway.
Oh,
it's pretty good.
Pretty good. Annihilation's pretty good.
I know.
But yeah, that's who I would pick. So anybody else who knows who Tessa Thompson is, it's just one of those things where she's been in things, but she's not really like known really.
Right.
And she's played some really good characters, but
she's not a Cameron Diaz.
Here, I can show you a picture of her.
Wasn't she in a superhero thing?
Black Panther is Black Panther. I think she was in.
Still need to see that.
Oh, that's an awesome movie. But
Valkyrie, is that what she was?
Oh, that's right. She was the elf in Ragnarok with Thor Ragnarok. Yeah.
Anyway,
for some reason, my initial thought was Oscar Isaac.
Oh, that'd be a good one too.
But I think he might be too hot.
You're saying John Malkovich isn't?
Well, that's the thing. Like, part of what was so compelling about him was that it was just that he was a dude. Like, it wasn't that
he was a remarkable actor. It's not like being, Tom Cruise at the time.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he wasn't even presented as being a great actor, like with the Shakespearean. When he was
He's sitting there reading The Cherry Orchard into a tape recorder, like...
and very poorly.
Yeah.
And like his first interaction with the taxis, hey, ain't you that actor who was that jewel thief? He's like, I've never played a jewel thief. He's like, no, I think you were.
Yeah.
And I love that people kept making that joke.
I know.
As the movie went on.
Like even Craig made that. He was like, he was that jewel thief in that movie. I think when he was initially telling Maxine about it, she was like, who the hell's John Malkovich?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So like, who the heck is Tessa Thompson?
Yeah.
So for that question, I don't have an answer because I don't. The person is
the name
too
also has
unknown
to have
for me to know.
They have to have a name with a good rhythm.
Yeah.
I think being Oscar Isaac would be pretty good.
Yeah.
But again, I think he's too handsome.
Yeah, being Michael Shannon, maybe.
Ooh, good one.
Yeah, see.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, I guess he could be about to turn 44.
Yeah, I think he's probably around that age.
That's a good one. Yeah, because he's an awesome actor, but nobody else knows him.
Being Haley Joel Osment.
No!
Especially
child actor.
Especially having aged a little.
Sure, right. Yeah. All right. I think that's pretty much all I had on this one. Yep. Any other thoughts? Alrighty. Yep. That's a wrap. $19.99 lives on at geekspective.com, where you can find other podcasts like this one. You can reach out to this show on the social medias at Plitgif, Plitgyif. That's Twitter, Tumblr, and Instagram. And you can find me on Tumblr at AnonymousIbex. So, we'll talk to you next time. Hope to see you at the next party.